In this video, we're going to make coconut kefir milk. We're going to start with either a can of milk, which I don't have with me, but you could have just poured a couple of cans into that jar and you'd be ready to go. Or you can make coconut milk from scratch, either with real coconut, which is unusual. Most of the world isn't going to have fresh coconuts ready to make milk with, and it's quite a procedure. The easiest way to do it, making it yourself, is using dehydrated coconut flakes or chips. And just to run quickly through this, which I'm not going to do in this video, but just to explain what I do, I use a high-speed blender. I fill 5 cups, I fill it with 5 cups of water. I put this whole packet in, which is 250 grams of flakes. I push the flakes down. I then put the blender on for a minute. I then take that milk and pour it into a muslin bag, a little bag or a big bag. This is synthetic, this is cotton, it doesn't matter which. And I do that over a jug. And then you're left with pulp and milk. And you use the milk for the ferment, and you can use this to put onto your vegetable gardens, or you can use it to put into cookies and cakes and things like that. So today I've made my milk in advance, and I'll show you that how to do that properly in another video. And as I say, this could be handmade, or it could be a can of milk. If you're going to use a can of milk, or this would be 2 cans, do choose organic, because you don't want to have additives, colouring, flavourings, extra sugar, anything like that. So just buy a nice clean coconut milk. And I'm using a jar that is the sort of jar I use for all my ferments. I buy them in different sizes. They're called clamp down jars because they have a lovely big clamp like that. You don't want a metal touching a ferment, so you can use a metal lid, but it would have to you'd have to keep the ferment further down the jar because chemicals can leach during lactic acid fermentation, and you don't want that to happen. You don't want chemicals in your ferment. So we've got a nice rubber seal. And what happens is when you clamp that lid down, it shuts out the oxygen, but allows enough carbon dioxide to release from the ferment, so that as the ferment is bubbling and creating that carbon dioxide, it's getting enough out that the jar will never explode. So don't worry, they're absolutely safe. And when you do make ferments, you do need to buy good quality jars. These I buy in a local shop, a kitchen shop. They're about £3-4. You can buy smaller ones for a couple of pounds. They're not expensive, and they will last you years. So that's what I use. Now we've got the milk in here. This is just plain coconut milk. And there are 2 ways of turning it into kefir. You're not going to believe how easy this is, you're really not. Right, this is a culture starter. This is a kefir starter. So you put in kefir starter, kefir culture starter, kefir starter powder onto the internet, and you'll find kefir powders that you can put into milk to start your kefir. What I want you to do is to remember to look to find a kefir starter that doesn't contain dairy. And I'll tell you why. Most people who are making non-dairy milks are doing it because they want to avoid dairy. So how are we going to turn this into kefir milk? Really easy. Either a powder or some milk from a previous coconut kefir milk. Now, as you know, I make a lot of kefir, so I'm in production, so I have some already made. If I didn't have that made, I would just open this packet, pour it in, stir, shut the lid, and that will become kefir in 2 days. 48 hours it takes to do this. That's all you have to do. Open the lid, cut this, put it in, stir it, shut the lid, do that. Put it in a warm place, 68 to 75 degrees, and leave it for 2 days. You could leave it on top of a fridge. You could leave it near a radiator. You could leave it in your utility room. You could put it in just a warm room, near a fire, not too near. You could put it in the airing cupboard. Anywhere that's going to help the fermentation process. 68 to 75 degrees. If it's hotter, that's okay, but it might ferment faster. The hotter the room, the hotter the space you're fermenting in, the quicker the ferment will happen. The fermentation. The cooler, the slower. So if something's running too fast, you want to bring it into a cooler space. If it's running too slowly for you, you want to put it into a warmer space. So that's the rule of fermentation in general. Now, I've made this milk. I make my own coconut milk in the way that I just described. I'm going to open the jar. And because this is a quart jar, it's nearly full, which is 2 pints. And because I have an existing ferment, I'm just going to put 6 tablespoonfuls of this milk into the new milk. So I'm now doing, that's 5. I believe I've counted right while I'm chatting. That's my 6. I don't even need to stir that. It's in there. People shake and jiggle, but you know what? It kind of knows what to do. It's fine. I just shut that lid and that's it. That's it. That's all you have to do. So it's that or that. So I'm just going to leave this jar in our utility, which is a tiny space off our kitchen, and I'll leave that for 2 days, and it will be kefir milk. Now, I want to explain something else. When it becomes kefir milk, I put it into this jar here. Okay, you don't need to filter it. You drink everything in it because there are no grains or anything in this. It's just you drink everything. And you will keep using this milk, some of this milk like this, to make the next batch and the next batch. And when this runs out, because these don't last forever, they'll make so many litres depending on which powder you buy, you'll know because it will stop fermenting and it won't taste sour anymore. When your milk is ready, 2 days later, you'll know because it's bubbly and you can taste it and it will taste sour. You don't want it really sour, but you want it a little bit sour because then it is fermented milk. If it's sweet, it's not fermented. And what you do is you just stir it with a big spoon because it's probably separated again, but that won't be over fermented, not if it's 2 days at the right temperature. And you just stir it like that. You take a jug and you just pour it into the jug like so. Whee! La 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 la. And you put the lid on. I spilt a load. So clumsy. And that's ready to go in the fridge. Now what you'll find is you must stir it first, otherwise it will kind of harden in the fridge. It doesn't really matter. You could just put it into the blender and blend it if it goes hard in the fridge, but it's better to stir it first. Now, what will happen is the cream will rise to the top. So it's a full fat milk, you see. So if you take that cream off to use for recipes or add fruit to it or just eat it with something, your milk will become less and less fat. And if you keep taking off the milk, you'll end up with a skimmed milk. So you can use the cream in recipes, or every day you can just, what I do is because it will rise and sometimes it goes nice and not hard, it's not really hard, you just need this spoon. This is a brewer's spoon, it's from a kitchen shop that sells all the little brewing stuff for simple beers, and it's like a couple of quid, you know, it's really cheap. And you have to sometimes dig through the cream and you stir it back in so you've got a nice full fat milk. But if you want some of the cream first, take it off and then stir it in. There are no rules, you just do whatever you like and use it however you wish. But that is coconut kefir milk. I mean, how easy is that? You know you can do it, can't you? You can!